Let's create a painterly effect of this beautiful ballerina from a shoot I did last summer. And as usual, I am not going to plan anything. I've just opened this image. I have done nothing to it. We are purely going to go through, see how painterly we can make it. I'm going for a sort of old masters style, borderline Rembrandt, but let's talk just in general, more of a painterly kind of feel to the photograph to give it an old fashioned kind of vibe. So let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is just talk about the image a little bit. It had a key light coming from the front, which I think was a 150, and 150 indirect octobox. And I had a rim light just coming from the side here on a strip box, as well as a halo behind her, creating this nice effect on the background. And there was a couple of reflector boards in there as well, just to bounce the light around. So I was already looking at creating definition along the cheekbone here, along the collarbone, along the arm, and creating quite a 3D kind of look, and really wanting to escalate the image into more of a three-dimensional rather than a flat painterly kind of vibe. So now we're going to bring it back again. We need this contour here. We need the contour in the lighting for the painterly effect to work. If we add this in after and it wasn't there originally as the lighting, it never quite looks exactly right. It can look a little bit forced. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to zoom in. Now, I'm not going to focus on tons of all the different bits that I'm doing. I'm going to focus really on what I'm doing to create the painterly effect. Now, as you can see, there's nothing needs doing here on the skin. There is nothing really to overly go over and edit. We have everything quite perfect. The hair was very neat. We were very styled. So it's nothing really I need to do in that sense. But the first thing I'm going to do is my contour. So what we're going to do is I'm going to create a second layer. Now, for anyone who's watched my other videos, you will know that I normally show this with a grey layer, but I'm showing some different techniques. And this is a way of doing contour without going through doing your grey layers and all your other layers. It is a way to contour onto directly onto the image, and then you can change your opacity. It's a quick contour and it's good for if you know what you're doing, but it's also good for a little bit of practice, especially getting to know what your dodge and your burn tool does. So I'm going to use my dodge tool and I'm on midtones 20%, and I'm going to tap just under the eye and tap just under the eye, and all I'm doing is following where the light already hit. The light was already hitting the face here. I'm not lightening the shadows, that would be wrong. And I'm going across the collarbone a tiny bit just to add a little shimmer, and just down where the highlight of the arms meet. And then I'm going to go over to my burn tool, midtones 20% yet again, and again I'm going to go over the areas I just want to darken ever so slightly, and they're the areas that the shadow is already there. Apologies if you feel like I'm skipping over this bit. I've made so many videos on contouring that I assume you're all bored of them. So I am getting straight to the good stuff with the painterly. So I'm just going over this contour nice and quickly. But overall happy with that. Let's turn this off and on. Perfect. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this down a little bit more. Now, this painterly effect here has really kind of already given us that feel that it has been hand painted, and that's because we're using the brush strokes. We are using the brush strokes to go over and enhance the lighting that was already there, but specifically in the places we want it enhanced. So I'm going to enhance the tutu a little bit as well. We're going to go back onto our dodge, and I'm going to add just little streaks coming just down the tutu here. Now you can see there already is slight streaks, slight little bits of light that have hit. I'm then going to go on my burn tool and go ever so slight down the streaks on the other side. I'm not being as accurate as it probably looks like I'm being here. I am just sketching things over. If I turn this off and on, you can see that tutu really now gains some texture, gets an effect. That looks lovely. Perfect. So I'm happy with that. I think that overall the contour there looks really, really good. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm not working at trying to keep all my layers and keep everything. I commit when I know I'm doing an edit because I know I'm happy with that. So I am going to be flattening my layers as we go along. If you don't like that, move on. That's absolutely fine. I do other videos where I keep all the layers. In this one, we're just looking for the finished effect. I'm not interested in being able to go back and do my contour, otherwise I would have done my other technique. So don't come for me in the comments, as we do. So I'm going to flatten that using Control E and flatten that down. Now, before I move on, I'm going to enhance this halo. Now, I love this halo. This halo we've got just here behind her looks absolutely beautiful. But I think I want a little bit more of a glowy halo just behind the head. Now, one technique I use for doing this is I'm going to hit Control J to duplicate my layer, Control L for my levels, and I'm just going to bring my midtones up a little bit, bring my highlights up a little bit. All I'm looking at doing is getting a slightly brighter version of whatever the background colour is. I'm not bothered about a face. And from there, click OK. We're going to add a mask, invert the mask with Control I, and now using a brush, I'm going to make my brush nice and big to where I want the halo to be. And I'm just going to tap and make that halo appear there. What's the problem? Of course, her face is now overexposed. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to go back on my brush and we're going to invert it. I might want a slightly less soft brush, ever so slightly. And I'm just going to bring back the areas I want to bring back. We'll deal with our edges in a second. Now, because I had that rim light on, this area doesn't need me to go right up to the edge. This side will, but I'm just bringing it back down to here. We can get away with that. Perfect. Now I'll come back to this side, but if I just zoom out a second, we've got a lot of halo there. That's lovely. Now I'm just going to tone that down a little bit more. Perfect. And decide where I want it. And just feather in very gently with my brush onto that side there. Perfect. So it's just given me that little bit more enhanced halo. I could have turned my light up at the time if I wanted to do that. But it was one thing that I sort of, as I'm looking at it now, I've just decided I wanted that a little bit more enhanced. You can also do this on backgrounds where you haven't added a halo in person, so you can do it digital afterwards. Now I'm quite happy with that. Now one of the things I want to do first is I'm going to add in a texture, add in an old painterly texture. Now if I just bring in my backgrounds folder here that I have AI generated before everyone asks where I got them. I've got lots of different things that I generated just to see what came out. We're not going floral with this one. I am looking to go with more of a grungy texture or a gold texture. But I do think that probably this one is going to be the most accurate. So I'm going to drag that on top of my image, make it fill the space. Perfect. And I want to unrender this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hit the erase tool, E, and hit the E, sorry. There we go. And it's going to say you want to rasterize smart object. Okay, yep, there's other ways of doing that, but that's the quickest way, just to unrasterize it to make it a nice, easy, non-smart object to work with. Now we're not going to worry about the color. I can change the color however I want to change it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play with my settings and we're going to go to overlay and soft light and see which one of those I think soft light's going to add that texture in the best. Perfect. So I think soft light's going to add that texture, and I'm probably going to take the color out. So if I hit Control U, I get my hue and saturation and I can turn that color all the way down. Now it's just made this layer gray. That's all it's done. But on the picture, it now isn't affecting the background. It's just giving me that texture, which is perfect. So easy, cheat way of adding this into the background and taking it off. We used to have to draw it and do all sorts of things. But I'm going to just click down onto my background layer, hit the select subject. It also is up in here, select subject. We'll let it find our subject for us. And then, oh, it's Mr. Tutu. Interesting. We'll sort that in a minute. We're going to go back onto our background layer, hit mask. Now it's automatically masked it over her instead of the other way around. So I'm just going to hit Control I to invert that. And now we have it on everything, including the tutu, but except her. Now let's fix that problem. So I'm going to click on this layer, hit my brush. because a tutu is a texture, it's quite good anyway. And using a black brush, I'm just going to scribble over those bits there because the edges are not that important in this image. It's not going to be noticed. But that's added a really nice painterly effect anyway. So I really like that. I think that's working really well. Now, the only thing we can play with next is the tones of the overall image to try and really make this feel a bit more painterly. Now, in painterly images, you might see people use almost a faded effect where it looks like the image is faded away, but the image is still quite contoured. It still has these textures. So we're looking at fading out the shadows, but keeping the contrast. So one of the things I'm going to do, I'm going to hit on my adjustments, I'm going to go to my levels. And just down here, grabbing my shadows, I'm going to slightly raise this up. So I've just lifted the shadows entirely. But now what we're going to do is we're going to enhance our contour with our midtones up here. We can enhance our highlights if you want to. In this image, I don't need to, but you would in a lot of images, so I'll point it out. And I can enhance my shadows in here as well, but this is the output level. So these are just going to flatten that image a little bit, whereas these are going to add that contrast. Now let's bring it just back, just to there. Now if I turn this off and on, you can see it's just added that ever so slight fade. Now that we've got that, we can add a little bit of a tint to pull the image together. This whole image is brown and contoured and gold, and that's really nice. So we're going to work with that. Another adjustment layer, solid color. Let's pick one of those colors, brownie color will do. And we're going to change that to lighten or screen. It's going to be lighten in this instance, where you can see it's just created slight effect. Now that we've got that, if I double click on this color, firstly, I can change the color anywhere I want, but the darker I go, the more it will just appear in the shadows. The higher I go, the brighter it will be. So you can now pick exactly what tones you want in those shadows to make it painterly. Now there's two things to go. You go complementary, which in this instance will be the oranges and the browns, and will work really, really nicely for that. Or we go opposite. And so with the oranges, well, I'll tell you what, I'll go over to the purples just so you can see that gives it a slightly worn away feel to the image. I quite like these. I like it when it's got that slightly oppositional kind of colouring. I think it looks quite nice, and I think we can play around with what we like there, maybe into the blues a little bit, sort of complements. I just kind of like it. However, yes, the oranges will look very, very nice and very painterly as well. So I'm going to go onto my blues, follow my instinct, go with what I like. Let's pull that down. So we've got our levels on top, which is doing our fade. We have our background colour on here, which is just doing our shadows. We have our texture here. And so we have everything together for that sort of painterly feel and painterly vibe to the image. Now, one last cheat that you can do is add, you might like this, you might not. Go onto your adjustments again and go to color lookup, and you'll get these 3D LUT files. I believe they're for video. I really do not know why these exist or what they're for. I've never even thought to look it up. But go down to the Kodak ones down here, and if you click on them and just click through, you'll see you get lots of different. Now you can go through loads of different effects. There's hundreds of really nice ones on here that just come with Photoshop naturally. But these 3 Kodak ones are my favorites, and that faded effect at the bottom can add that effect in for you nice and easily. The middle one has always been my favorite because it's quite rich, it's quite nice, and it adds a bit of drama. And then I can tone it down as I want. I can also, it's now currently above my color lookup, so if I just move that around, I always try and leave that levels on top just in case anything's not being affected by it. You want that overall matte effect to apply to all your layers. But that color lookup has just made it really nice and added a little bit of richness to it. And again, overall, I'm really happy with that. I think that's changed quite a lot from where we started. Even if I just turn these layers off, you can see the image basically as was, bar the contour that we added. So adding the texture, then we added the color into the shadows. We added our color lookup, and we've added our fade effect. Now, because these adjustment layers, I can go back in and I can enhance any of these as much as I want to, and just create these for whatever I want it to be, and go back onto my color. And if I decide, double click, I'll go, do you know what? They were right. Let's go with the orange. And I could decide I want to have a lot more orangey kind of texture in there. We can do that too. But I think it's a really good way to create that kind of painterly feel, and it works very well when you've got someone in an outfit that has texture, like a tutu, but like knitwear and things like that can work really well. And their skin is quite clear, and I don't mean that in blemishes kind of way. I mean there's not lots of different colours and different hair colours. It's quite natural, quite a clean palette to give you quite a painterly vibe already. So yeah, I'm really happy with that. I think that looks really good. I hope this has been helpful. And I will be doing a lot more painterly style images in all different sorts of genres. So subscribe, come and join us on the channel. I release videos. I try to release videos every Wednesday and Friday, but we do what we can in busy times. And I will see you guys soon.